Remember when your parents told you staying up late would stunt your growth? Turns out your body literally rewired itself to ignore them. Your brain's internal clock is having a midlife crisis at 14. So here's the thing about puberty that nobody talks about at those awkward health class presentations. While your voice is cracking and you're sprouting hair in weird places, your brain decides to completely renovate its sleep department. Scientists call it sleep phase delay, which is fancy talk for your biological clock just moved to a different time zone without asking permission. Before puberty, kids naturally feel sleepy around 8 or 9 p.m. Their brains pump out melatonin like a broken soft-serve machine. Then bam, you hit 13, and suddenly your brain acts like melatonin is on backorder from Amazon. Instead of releasing this sleep hormone at a reasonable hour, teenage brains wait until 10 or 11 p.m. to even start production. Some teens don't get their melatonin surge until after midnight. Your parents think you're being rebellious. Nope, you're just chemically incapable of feeling tired when they want you to. Melatonin, the hormone that ghosted you. Let's talk about melatonin, the hormone that basically said, see ya later to punctuality once you hit your teens. In adults, this stuff starts flowing around 9 p.m. like clockwork. In teenagers, it shows up fashionably late to the party, sometimes not until 11 p.m. or later. Dr. Mary Karskadon from Brown University discovered this back in the 1992 when she basically stalked teenagers' sleep patterns for science. She found that adolescent brains delay melatonin release by about 2 hours compared to children and adults. That's right. Your brain is running on Pacific time while the rest of the world expects you to operate on Eastern Standard. But wait, it gets better. Not only does melatonin show up late, it also overstays its welcome. While adults' melatonin levels drop off around 7 a.m., making them naturally wake up, teenage melatonin keeps pumping until 8 or 9 a.m., sometimes later. So, when your alarm goes off at 6:30 for school, your brain is basically still marinating in sleep juice. You're not lazy, you're literally drugged by your own hormones. The 9-hour sleep myth that schools refuse to believe. Here's a fun fact that'll make you want to print this out and staple it to your principal's forehead. Teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. The National Sleep Foundation isn't making this up for kicks. Your brain is doing some serious renovation work during these years, and it needs those hours to not turn into mush. But let's do some quick math that apparently nobody in the education system has ever attempted. If school starts at 7:30 a.m. and you need to wake up at 6:30 to get ready, you'd need to fall asleep by 9:30 p.m. to get 9 hours. Except remember that whole thing about melatonin not showing up until 11 p.m.? Yeah, your biology teacher expects you to understand photosynthesis while your brain is still wondering why the sun exists. Studies show that only about 15% of teenagers get the recommended amount of sleep on school nights. The other 85% are walking around like extras from a zombie movie, except zombies probably get better rest in their graves. Your frontal cortex is under construction, please excuse the mess. While we're on the subject of your brain betraying you, let's discuss what's actually happening up there during your teen years. Your frontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and impulse control, is basically under major renovation until you're 25. It's like trying to live in a house while contractors are ripping out walls and installing new plumbing. During sleep, your brain literally cleans itself. There's this thing called the glymphatic system that basically power washes metabolic waste out of your brain tissue. In teenagers, this process is working overtime because you're producing new neural connections faster than a fiber optic cable installation. Skip sleep, and you're basically letting toxic gunk build up in your neural highways. Dr. Matthew Walker from UC Berkeley found that sleep-deprived teens show 40% less activity in their hippocampus, the brain's memory inbox. That's why you can't remember anything from first period. Your brain's email server was down for maintenance. One study tracked 3,000 high schoolers and found that for every hour of lost sleep, grades dropped by 0.3 points on a 4.0 scale. That's your GPA literally evaporating into the night. Another researcher at Stanford discovered that sleep-deprived teens have reaction times similar to legally drunk adults. So basically, taking a calculus test on 4 hours of sleep is like trying to solve derivatives while hammered. Except alcohol is illegal for teens, but sleep deprivation? Totally fine, apparently. Welcome to the education system. Why coffee hits different when you're 16? So you've discovered coffee, energy drinks, or whatever caffeinated poison keeps you vertical during third period. Congratulations, you've joined the chemical dependency club. But here's the kicker. Caffeine works differently in teenage brains than adult brains. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in your brain. Adenosine is the stuff that builds up during the day and makes you feel tired. In adults, this system is pretty straightforward. In teenagers, your adenosine production is already weird because of all that brain remodeling, so caffeine hits like a sledgehammer. Studies from Johns Hopkins show that teenagers who consume caffeine regularly actually alter their brain's reward pathways. You're literally rewiring your brain to need that sweet, sweet bean juice. Plus, caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours, meaning that Red Bull you chugged at 3 p.m. is still partying in your system at 9 p.m., making your already delayed sleep even more delayed. It's a vicious cycle, like a snake eating its own tail, except the snake is tired, and the tail is made of espresso. The social jet lag nobody talks about. Scientists have this term called social jet lag, which is basically when your biological clock and social schedule are in different zip codes. For teenagers, this is every single day of the school year. Your body wants to sleep from 1 a.m. to 10 a.m., but society demands you function from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Research from the University of Munich looked at 25,000 people and found that teenagers experience the most severe social jet lag of any age group. On weekends, teens sleep an average of 2 to 3 hours later than weekdays, trying desperately to pay back their sleep debt like it's a credit card bill. Except unlike credit cards, your brain charges interest in the form of mood swings, acne, and the inability to remember where you put literally anything. Light, your new worst enemy and best friend. Your retinas have these special cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Try saying that 3 times fast after no sleep. These cells don't help you see, they just tell your brain whether it's day or night. And guess what teenagers love staring at until 2 a.m.? Screens that blast blue light directly into these cells like a disco ball of wakefulness. Blue light wavelengths between 450 to 480 nanometers suppress melatonin production more than any other light. Your phone, laptop, tablet, they're all basically telling your brain it's noon in the Sahara Desert when it's actually midnight in your bedroom. Dr. Charles Chisler from Harvard found that exposure to blue light for 6.5 hours can shift your circadian rhythm by 3 hours. 3 whole hours. But here's the plot twist. Morning light exposure can actually help reset your clock. Getting bright light within the first hour of waking can advance your circadian rhythm, making you tired earlier at night. Of course, this would require actually seeing sunlight before noon, which, let's be honest, when was the last time that happened? The evolutionary theory that makes zero sense in modern times. Some evolutionary biologists think teenage night owlism might have been useful back when we lived in caves. The theory goes that having some members of the tribe awake at different times provided better protection from predators and enemies. Teenagers, with their shifted sleep schedules, would have been the night watch. Great. Super useful when you're worried about saber-toothed tigers. Completely useless when you're worried about the SATs. Thanks, evolution. Really came through for us on this one. Now, instead of watching for predators, teenagers are watching TikToks and wondering why everyone from the medieval period looked like they needed a good moisturizer. Your cave teenager ancestors probably had it better anyway. No algebra homework, no standardized tests, just don't get eaten and find some berries. And they got to sleep when their bodies actually wanted to sleep because nobody had invented first period PE yet. Plot twist, it gets worse before it gets better. Here's something that'll really bake your noodle. The teen sleep phase delay peaks around age 20. That's right, it actually gets worse through your late teens. Your circadian rhythm doesn't start shifting back to normal adult patterns until your early 20s. So if you're 16 and thinking it'll get better next year, surprise, your brain has other plans. But wait, there's more, said in the voice of every infomercial ever. This shift isn't the same for everyone. Some teens experience a delay of just an hour, while others shift by 4 to 5 hours. There's actually a genetic component to this, controlled by genes with names like clock and period 2, because apparently scientists naming genes think they're writing poetry. The real kicker? Once you hit your mid-20s and your sleep schedule finally normalizes, you'll spend the next 40 years of your adult life desperately trying to get back the sleep you lost as a teenager. It's like your body is playing the longest practical joke in human history, and the punchline won't hit until you're trying to stay awake during your kid's school play when you're 45. Speaking of which, someday you'll be that parent banging on your teenager's door at 7 a.m., completely forgetting that you once duct-taped your alarm clock to the ceiling because it was the only way to force yourself out of bed. The circle of life, except instead of lions and gazelles, it's exhausted humans yelling at other exhausted humans about being exhausted.